Coming up next, the joys of spring both in the kitchen and the garden. Hi, I'm Alan Smith. Welcome to Garden to Table, a show about spending quality time both in the garden and in the kitchen and coming up with some delicious things to eat. Now in today's show, we're all about spring. You can see it emerging everywhere. The fields around the house and the farm are full of daffodils. You just can't believe the number of them, and they're so beautiful. And down here in the vegetable garden, you can see I have fruit trees. These beautiful pears are blooming, and I can even smell this freshly tilled soil. Now in today's show, we're going to focus on one of my favorite spring events. That's when the fungi begins to emerge. We're going to go on a morel hunt. And then one of my favorite chefs is going to prepare an amazing dish with them. Also in today's show, we're going to be picking dandelions. Yes, some people consider them a weed, but I'm going to show you how to create a salad with them. And a little later, a quick tip on choosing and preparing artichokes. And I almost forgot, I have some friends coming over later for lunch to pick some daffodils. You're going to want to stick around to see how this tablescape comes together. Now in a few minutes, we're going to talk about this interesting looking pear tree. But first, I want you to meet a friend of mine, Jay Justice. You see, Jay's a field mycologist, a person who's devoted to the identification and study of wild fungi. He takes us on a search for the elusive and delicious morel mushroom.
Up the hill. I'm Jay Justice. I'm the current president of the Arkansas Mycological Society. We're out in the woods this day in March, hoping to find some morels. If you look at the top of my staff here, this is a depiction of a carving of a yellow morel, and they're really considered excellent edibles. Probably the most excellent edible fungus, only surpassed by the truffles. The best place to look would be under elm trees, but of course a lot of the elm trees have died off because of the Dutch elm disease. Ash trees. Ash trees in the mountainous areas are known to be associated with morels. And I'm stopping at every ash tree and looking at the base of them. The morels will be in a circular pattern, maybe 2 feet out from the trunk of the tree. So that's what I'm looking for. What we have here is a collection of the true turkey tail. These are used medicinally by Asian people. They make a tea out of it and then drink the tea. Well, what we have here is a nice collection of the false turkey tail. This is a species of the genus Sterium. And the way you can tell the false turkey tail from the true turkey tail is the fact that the false turkey tail is completely smooth underneath. Well, we're fortunate. We've actually located one right here, a young black morel. I don't know if you can see it. It's pretty well hidden. It is around the ash tree, and it was kind of hidden in the leaves, but I'll pick it up and see what we have. It's kind of a young one. It's probably been up probably less than a week, but it's a young black morel, and this is the first one of the season, and it tells us, by looking at it, I can tell it's not very old, so it tells us there will be more to come in the future. So conditions are good. So that's our find for the day. One young black morel.
We're going to make a dish that screams spring. My absolute favorite mushroom morels. I'm going to pair it with a pappardelle pasta, a mascarpone cream sauce, sugar snap peas, fresh asparagus, and edible pansies. It's absolutely delicious. You'd start with the mascarpone cream sauce. You can make this earlier in the day and set it aside. Mascarpone is an Italian triple cream cheese, often used in tiramisu, but I love it in the silky texture that it imparts to pasta. A little bit of vermouth, shallots, garlic, heavy cream, reduce it down a bit, fold in the mascarpone cream, just a hint of nutmeg, salt and pepper, and that's the sauce. You can go ahead also and cook your pasta earlier in the day. I've chosen to use pappardelle. It's a very wide fettuccine noodle. You want to make sure that you cook this al dente. The way to test for that is throw it against the wall. If it sticks, it's perfect. The other harbingers of spring besides the morels, I've got some pencil thin beautiful asparagus and some sugar snap peas. I've cooked these just for 60 seconds or so to blanch them and refresh them under cold water. Then for the pièce de résistance, the morel mushrooms. Just cook these in a really simple butter and garlic sauce. Got a couple of tablespoons of butter in my sauté pan. Add a clove or two of fresh garlic. Now when you use the morel mushrooms, they're usually very, very clean, so it's not necessary to wash them. Use a brush or a cloth to wipe any dirt that happens to cling to it. Very, very delicate. These are small, so I'm going to leave them whole. If you find larger ones, you might want to cut them on the diagonal or cut them in thin slices. Saute them for 2 or 3 minutes just until they're aromatic. And in the meanwhile, the rest of the dish is essentially finished. We'll heat the sauce a bit. The vegetables are already cooked. If you like a bit of a stronger flavor, you could add some shallot to the morels. That pairs very nicely with it. You can smell the garlic. It smells awesome. The shallots would go well also because we've got it in the mascarpone sauce. So while that's cooking, we'll just take the pasta that's already been cooked and drop it into boiling water, just enough to heat it through. You don't want to overcook it. We'll take the pasta and place it in a mixing bowl. Add the asparagus and the sugar snaps. And here's the star, the morel mushrooms with the garlic. The mascarpone cream sauce, just enough to bind everything together. Give it a gentle stir. It smells so good. Morels are so rich and earthy and woodsy. You could serve this family style on a big platter. One thing that's going to really set this off, and it's one of my favorite things about springtime too, the wonderful edible flowers. I've got some beautiful unsprayed purple pansies that we'll add for a garnish. So look how great that looks. And maybe a little bit of parsley around the edge. Now if that's not spring, I don't know what is.
I'm so excited to be able to show you these pear trees in such beautiful bloom. Just look at all the flowers. Not only are we enjoying them by just looking at them, the honeybees are all over them today, which will mean we'll have lots of pears. This is a kefir pear, and it's one that does well in this particular part of the world. It produces a very large, hard pear that's very good for canning. Now, these trees are very interesting in terms of their shape. The method of pruning here is called Espalier, And this particular design is one called candelabra. And if you step back and you look at the pear tree, you can see that the branching does resemble a candelabra. Now, to achieve this, it takes several years of pruning. In fact, I do all of my pruning in late winter to make sure that this shape is maintained. Now, this is a really practical approach to growing a fruit tree, particularly if you have limited space, because you're essentially growing this fruiting tree on a single plane. This is a time-honored method of growing fruit trees. In fact, it was popular in colonial America. You can go to Martha and George Washington's Mount Vernon and see Espalier trees there in their food garden. You know, one of the things that I like to do as a ground cover underneath these Espalier trees is plant beautiful things such as tulips, but also practical things like strawberries and thyme and other herbs. With all of these flowers and honeybees pollinating them, we have the promise of a big harvest this year. We just have to remain hopeful that we don't get a late season cold snap that knocks all these blooms and tiny fruit off. Okay, enough about these pears. Let's step over here. I want to talk apples for a moment. Now, this variety of apple is a gala apple, but like the pear, it's in an espalier, and this form is called a cordon, where you have these 4 horizontal limbs going in opposite directions. Beautiful design. But as you can see, the apple is not quite as far along in terms of its bud, so those flowers are not as vulnerable to cold weather as we have with the pear. Now, I love apples, but the apple harvest is on the opposite end of the season. But there's no reason why we shouldn't talk about them now. In fact, a friend of mine, Patrick Heron, does a magical job with apples with this time-honored dessert.
All right, we're going to do an apple tarte tatin today, a classic French dessert, which is basically an upside-down apple pie. First, we're going to start out with about 7 ounces of butter. This is a non-stick Teflon pan with a high edge on it so that you can get all your apples and stuff into it. We're going to take 3/4 cups of regular sugar and almost 1/2 cup of sugar in the raw. Not brown sugar, it's a little different. It's not as dark, not as molasses in flavor. We're going to let this develop into a little bit of a caramel sauce. And then we're going to layer in Golden Delicious apples, which we've peeled, cut into quarters, and then taken a little bit of the core. The caramel sauce will take about 5 to 6 minutes to set up. You don't want it to turn too brown before you add your apples, because you're going to cook your apples in the caramel sauce, which gives the apples a real rich flavor. So as soon as the sugar starts to melt and starts to turn color, you want to add your apples in. Right here, our caramel's starting to develop where the edge is getting brown. We're going to cut down the heat just a little bit. Okay, turn the heat down. And then we're going to layer the apples in one at a time, side by side, facing the same direction. And as these cook, the moisture coming out of them is going to form more of the sauce. But you want to get them in pretty tight. And if this caramel is very hot, and it will burn you. So it's okay to get them started in there as quick as you can. And then we can always come back and put more apples in them to tighten it up. And it helps if you cut part of the apple with the flat side. Helps it lay up a little bit easier. Already you're getting a good golden caramel color on the apples. And they will shrink a little bit, so you can stuff them in there as tight as you can before you put on the pastry crust. Okay, now that we've got our apples in there nice and tight, we're going to put the top on it. Cut your heat off. And this is called pâte brisée, which is basically pie crust with a little bit of sugar in it to make it sweet. We're going to fold it over and take the edges from the overlap. You want to overlap about 1/2 inch all the way around. Then you take the back of a wooden spoon or a utensil and push it down in, just to seal in a little bit of that caramel sauce. Cut a little chimney for it to steam to come out of. And then this is ready to go in the oven for about 30 minutes or until this crust is really golden brown. And when that comes out, we'll show you how to flip it over and you'll have your apple tarte tatin.
I have to say, I love artichokes prepared just about any way. What's interesting about this plant is it's the flower bud that we actually eat, and cooking them can be a little bit daunting. Now when choosing artichokes, you want to look for buds that have really tightly packed leaves. Now if some of the outer leaves have some brown spots on them, that's totally fine. Now using a knife with a serrated edge, you want to slice off the top ½ inch, the top of the bud, so it has a nice flat surface. Then hold the artichoke by the stalk and use kitchen scissors to snip the tiny points from the remaining leaves. The stem is edible and quite delicious, but if you plan to serve these where the bud or the artichoke is sitting upright on the plate, you're going to want to slice this off with your knife. Then all you have to do is refrigerate unwashed artichokes in a plastic bag until you're ready to prepare them. Now an artichoke will last in the refrigerator like this for a week to 10 days. You just want to be mindful if it begins to splay, if these scales begin to separate or widen, you want to eat it as soon as possible. To me, one of the greatest symbols of spring in the vegetable garden is asparagus. There's just nothing quite like the flavor of it, particularly when you can cut it out of your own garden. So you can just see, let's look at the color, it's so beautiful. This recipe is called ginger sesame stir-fry asparagus. So what we're going to start with is I'm going to turn on the stove here and just begin to heat this skillet at medium temperature. Then I'm taking this olive oil, that's 2 tablespoons of olive oil. First thing you want to do is you want to take half a red bell pepper. You can see I've already cut these into little long fingers. What we're going to do is we're going to just lightly stir fry these until they're tender. You still want a little bite to them. You want them slightly al dente. So we're going to get this going. So it really only takes about 2 or 3 minutes to get the pepper ready. Now I'm ready to take the asparagus, and what I did is I used about 2 dozen spears of this diameter. That's about 1.5 pounds of asparagus. And you see I cut it into these small, there we go, these small pieces. It really smells good, and we haven't even put the spicy stuff in here. Now this recipe has, as I mentioned, wonderful flavors, but also has a little bit of a bite to it. And now that I have this mixed up, I'm ready to take, I have 1 tablespoon of soy sauce, and I have 1 tablespoon of fresh chopped ginger root that I'm adding here. Doesn't take much. And then to give it a little fire, I have 1/4 teaspoon, and you can add more if you really like heat, of red pepper flakes, all right? And that is really all there is to it. And what I would do is now take this and, oh, the aroma is fantastic. Let it cook for just a few minutes longer. One thing to remember on the asparagus is you don't want to cook it too long. What I did is I just took about 2 inches of water in this very pan and put the cut asparagus in here and boiled it for just right at 5 minutes, and then took it off the heat and dumped it in the colander immediately and ran cold water over it. You could actually put some ice to cool it down so it doesn't continue to cook. Now, wrapping this up, I think we've cooked it long enough. Last 2 ingredients, 2 teaspoons of toasted sesame oil, another great flavor, and 1 teaspoon of sesame seeds. And there you have it. It's a real crowd pleaser. Give it a try. Each spring I look out onto my lawn and I see all kinds of wildflowers. There's one out there that is actually edible and quite delicious. It's the dandelion. We've all seen these greens. They're long with little sharp edges. In fact, the name dandelion is derived from the same word as the tooth of the lion. Now, what I like to do is cook them as a sauté, but a lot of people find that they're slightly bitter. That bitterness doesn't bother me. I think it adds depth to a salad or a sauté. And what I'm doing here is I'm taking really just 1 pound of dandelion greens, and I've already prepared them. I've chopped them coarsely, and I've put them in just a brine. And this is just about 4 cups of water with a teaspoon of salt. This helps to take a little bit of the bitterness out of them. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is just put them into boiling water here for about 5 minutes. Very much like the daffodil, the dandelion is really sort of a symbol of spring. Its bright, perky flowers just pop up everywhere, seemingly overnight. Now, the best way to grow them actually is to grow dandelions yourself. You can buy the seed and you can sow them as you would any other salad green. In fact, I like to start them early on in my greenhouse when it's still very cold outside, and then I can transplant them out into the garden. Now, I'll let these dandelions cook here with the lid off, and what I'm going to do now is get my sauté ready, and I'm just using about 1/4 of a cup of vegetable oil. You can use olive oil. And I just want to sauté these onions. I'm using a white onion and really just 1/2 cup of onion is all you need here for this amount. And then garlic. I've just taken 1 clove coarsely chopped. I'm going to add that. And then to give it a little heat, I think a little cayenne pepper is very, very nice here. So I've taken 1 pod of the cayenne pepper, no seeds, just the pod, and I crushed it by hand. You can see it adds a beautiful color to this. And I'm just going to sauté this until the onions become clear. And then at that point, we're going to take the dandelion greens and put them in here, and we'll be ready to serve it up. You'll find that the onion and the oil also help take a little bit of that bitterness out of the dandelion green. Okay, now I've lifted the greens out and I'm draining the water, and you can see that they've reduced quite a bit. Most of the water's off. I've turned the heat off of the sauté, but now I'm going to go ahead and add the dandelions. Beautiful color green. And my oil is still hot, so it's going to cook just a little bit, but you really, at this point, just want to mix all those beautiful onions and the garlic together thoroughly. You can see it's a beautiful, beautiful color, and it smells divine. This recipe will be enough for about 4 people. And what you want to do is you want to just add a little salt, and then of course some pepper. Fresh cracked pepper, I like a lot of that. And then the way you can serve it is with just a little Parmesan cheese. Just on top like that. And it's really a wonderful taste of spring that you should try. Very good. I just love it when you can bring the table out to the garden, and that's what we've done here. And what I'm doing is I'm taking advantage of what I have around me, and that's a lot of daffodils. So what I've created here is a get-together for 8 around a round table in the middle of the daffodils. And I've used some really basic things. I've used for the tablecloth pieces of burlap, just layered about 4 pieces, one over the other, to cover the table completely. And then for the napkins, I've actually picked up some kitchen towels at a local discount store. You can see the color theme is very simple. It's yellow, green, and white, and of course the taupe burlap covers the table. Now another theme going on here is the shape round. We have a round table, I have a round green placemat, and a round plate, white plates. And then in the center, this round space, I have 14 round bouquets of daffodils, all the same variety of daffodil. I guess the thing to remember here is just have some fun with it and be creative. The glass vases I used on the table are a mixture of mason jars and just kitchen glasses. Just use what you have. Well, as you can see, my friends are showing up. They're out here to pick daffodils, and we're going to have a great, delicious meal. Well, that's all the time we have for today's show. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. Until next time, good eating and good health.